hearing about symptoms that maybe we're beginning to notice, and we have no choice but to run in. Sometimes that's too late, so we have to let's get rid of all that. We got to come in. We got to have checkups. We got to start being more concerned about the preventative aspects of our health.
Tell me why you don't believe that the damage done to us as perhaps the most maligned group in the history of this country. Tell me why you think the damage isn't irreparable. If you believe we're redeemable, how does that happen at this stage of the game in America?
I think it's going to take a divine solution, and I mean that in the deepest sense of it. I think if you look at any besieged people throughout history, a message has been brought to those people. The Arabs before the Prophet Muhammad, God, peace be upon him. I think we need a divine solution. I do believe, however, that we are redeemable, and that's certainly my intention, to die trying.
Well, people often come to me and ask me, Dr. Modlin, what motivates you? What is your inspiration to continue to do what you're doing in terms of being a vocal advocate, an instrument, a catalyst for the elimination of healthcare disparities in African Americans and other minority populations and underserved populations? And I'm inspired for a variety of reasons. A couple of reasons which I don't always tell people about. My father's favorite Bible verse was Isaiah 40:31, which reads, "Those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." And basically what that means is, if you believe in the Lord, if you trust in the Lord, you'll be able to do all types of things. You'll have the ability and determination to succeed at whatever you wish to succeed at. And my mother also was a huge inspiration for me. And there's a particular encounter or story, I say it's a divine encounter, that was presented to me and came to me from my mother. In 2003, my mother was in the hospital in Indiana. She had been placed on hemodialysis because she developed kidney failure from severe diabetes. She also developed severe gangrene of the lower extremities and required a lower extremity amputation. I was there for that operation, and the surgeons told me that she would need another amputation the following week. And it was my plan, obviously, to go back and be with her in Indiana. When I was leaving her bedside after the first operation, I told her I had to get back to Cleveland, take care of my patients and my 4 little children. And I said, but I'm going to be back, you know, and I call her, Mommy, I'm going to be back, Mommy. And she goes, listen, don't worry about me. She always would tell me, don't worry about me, I'll be okay. Go back and take care of those children. You're their father, they need you. And of course, I'm going to be back and take care of my mother. So I went back to Cleveland. I had, it was a Wednesday. Her surgery was scheduled for the Friday, 2 days later. I went back and I had 2 major operations on that Wednesday. 2 radical prostatectomies. That's a surgery where we perform complete removal of the prostate in men with prostate cancer. I had 2 separate procedures. I was just finishing up the first operation about 10 a.m. when I received an urgent phone call from my office. And it was the doctors from Indiana informing me that my mother had suffered a cardiac arrest. And I immediately said, listen, I'm finished here. I can finish up here. I can reschedule my second case, drive to Indiana. I can be down there 3.5, 4 hours to be with her. And they assured me, no, we revived her. We resuscitated her. She's fine. She'll be okay. Her vital signs are stable. And so I felt more comfortable, and I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start my second case. I started my second procedure. And I received an urgent phone call, second urgent phone call about 3:15 in the afternoon, informing me that my mother had just passed away at 3:02 from another cardiac arrest. And of course I was very distraught, but I was also very angry at myself. I was kicking myself. I thought to myself, listen, I should have actually rescheduled that second case, driven down to Indiana to be with my mother. I could have been with her at her last moment. And who knows, maybe if I had been there, maybe there was something I could have done to where she would not have passed away. There are many things that go through your mind at that moment. And so I went home. My plan was to get some rest, drive down to Indiana the next day and make her final arrangements. But that night, that morning, at 3:02 in the morning, I was awakened by the sound of a clock chiming. But what was interesting is that clock had not worked for over 6 months. It was the kind of clock that required 2 keys to be wound, and nobody had actually wound the clock for quite some time because we knew it didn't work. The keys were actually in a whole different room, different location, high up on a shelf. The kids could not have reached those 2 keys, would not have known how to wind the clock. And I thought it was really strange because I looked at that bedside clock and it read 3:02 when I heard that clock chiming downstairs. So the next morning, I get up and I go downstairs, getting ready to drive down to Indiana, and I look over, the clock is still ticking, and the hands on the clock read 3:02. Now again, my mom had passed at 3:02 the afternoon before. I heard the clock chiming at 3:02 in the morning, and I go downstairs and the hands still say 3:02. And what's more, that clock kept ticking for another 4 months without ever being wound. And it occurred to me, my mother had actually sent me a divine signal telling me, listen, you did what you're trained to do. You did what you were put on this earth to do, to take care of patients. That is your calling. You don't have to feel guilty because you didn't come down and see me. You stayed and took care of those patients. That's what you were supposed to do. That's what you were put on this earth to do. That is what your divine calling is, and I'm proud of you. And so, again, I haven't told many people about that, but that is one of my biggest sources of inspiration and what motivates me and what gives me the stamina and determination to continue doing what I do, to be a leader and a vocal force and voice for the elimination of healthcare disparities.